Hey everybody, it's Gene Marks and welcome back again to the Hartford Small Biz Ahead Podcast. Really happy to have you here, and I'm really happy to have Grace Tallon. Grace is the head of operations at the Work Time Reduction Center of Excellence. Grace is talking to us from Toronto. Thank you so much for joining us, Grace. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today because your topic, which is really work week and flexibility and smarter working, these are things that are of huge importance to many of my clients as well as to many of our audience as well. But before we get into some specific questions that I have for you, let's talk a little bit about the Work Time Reduction Center of Excellence. Tell me about the organization and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So we are a global organisation based here in Toronto, and myself and Joe O'Connor set this organisation up in partnership with Curium Solutions, who are a people first change management organisation. They're based in the UK and the US. Joe O'Connor was the former CEO of 4-Day Week Global, so he was intimately involved in the trials that we would have read about. And I guess this idea of a centre of excellence in work time reduction was born out of what we were seeing through the trials, which was really companies needing a little bit more support. This being a movement that is definitely gaining traction. We see it in the headlines all the time. But what we do in the Centre of Excellence is really we get under the bonnet and we get in to organizations to see how ready they are, because some organizations, they want to do this, but they're simply not ready. It's not a switch that you can turn on tomorrow, So what we try to do with our clients is bring them along that journey. And we also have a research wing to the Centre of Excellence, which is where we're kind of really delving into the benefits of work time reduction in different organizations and in different parts of the organization as well, because often we find our clients might move certain parts of their companies to a universal day off. Other parts of the organization will reduce their hours during different days. So there's lots of ways that we see our clients starting this journey. But I suppose one of the really important things is that it is a journey. It can be a 6, 12, 24-month journey. And I guess that's the important thing for leaders, I suppose, who are entering this conversation, or some are sort of afraid to enter the conversation because they think, once we start to talk about the 4-day week, our employers, So the great thing about, I feel, what we're doing in the Centre of Excellence is allowing people to have that conversation, to go back, to talk to their employees and see, can we do this? Is this possible for us? And some companies say no, it isn't.
Right.
I'm not ready today, and that's okay. It's going to take some time before we see this brought in across every organisation, which I do believe we will see. But it's not happening today or tomorrow. And what we're trying to do is really support and help organizations to make that decision and to see how they can move forward.
So it's funny because the whole concept of the 4-day work week is it really depends on the audience of business owners that hears this. There have been some real successful 4-day work week programs in Europe. I'm not even sure about Canada, but I'm wondering if maybe you can, if you're comfortable talking about some of the successful implementation of 4-day work week. I think Microsoft did one recently, some other larger companies. Tell us a little bit about, the companies that have implemented 4-day work weeks and what they saw.
So there are indeed companies here in Canada that have ran some really successful trials. Some even before, there was those 4-day week trials that we would have read about.
Right.
Some companies began a trial, like the Ross firm started, they're a legal firm here in Canada. They started a trial with compressed hours, which we don't advocate for in the Work Time Reduction Centre of Excellence, but it was a way for them to begin the journey. And by compressed hours, you're sort of working 10 hours a day over 4 days, let's just say, for argument's sake. Sometimes it can look different. And what their CEO realized after, a couple of months of doing this, there was burnout. Their employees were not as productive in the last 2 hours of the day. But there was definitely an appetite for seeing, how can we actually make this work by really reducing hours and having genuine work time reduction. And they did that. And that is a difficult industry to do it in. The legal sector is hard. They were
Yeah.
working billable hours at the time. So they had to go back to the drawing board and look and see, how can we change the way that we bill for projects, because they were billing by the hour. So they had to look at that. They had to go through, we've heard of, you're looking at the distractions in the office, you're looking at how we're using technology. And they did that. And the response from employers was incredible, and employees was incredible. They were happier, healthier, more productive. They would recommend working in the firm to, and I think that's the biggest thing, is the talent attraction piece. And when your people are saying this is a wonderful place to work and genuinely feel that, and that's what they're putting out, that's a huge thing.
Got it.
And the other aspect was that clients were really happy too, because obviously the bottom line is really important, and not just from, your bottom line financially. You're trying to build partnerships, you're trying to build relationships. And I think often what we find is leaders are afraid of what their clients are going to feel, but 9 times out of 10, the clients want to go on that journey with them, and they're actually really interested in how they did it and can they do it themselves. And certainly, there's YLaw as well here in Canada, who've also had a successful 4-day week. And that's how the movement grows, is when more of similar organizations in the industry are doing it successfully.
Sure. Makes sense. No, that completely makes sense. Does a 4-day work week, Grace, necessarily mean that our company is closed on Fridays? Does it, is that what you normally see?
Well, I think what we're seeing a little bit more in the pieces that we're reading, and the big headline is 3-day weekend. But what I'm happy to see is I'm reading more articles that are getting under the bonnet and are talking about what work time reduction can look like. A lot of businesses are simply not in a position to close the door on a Friday, and often employees don't want that either. And so we see lots of different structures, and I think the biggest thing is that it has to work for the organization. And I mentioned before about sometimes part of the organization can close on a Monday or close on a Wednesday. And you don't run that team doesn't come in that day, and another team will. I mean, it doesn't have to be that you run the same work time reduction piece across the organization. It can look differently depending on the size of the organization. We often see that different parts will implement the strategy a different way to suit that team. But very much it is not just about closing. Yes, it works for lots of businesses. I mean, there's a PR firm here, Praxis, who gives that universal day off, and that works for them. And I mean, that is an industry that, they're client focused, they're under pressure. It's a really fast paced industry, and they made it work, and particularly there's so much burnout in that industry as well. You're also looking for these creative juices all the time.
Right.
If your staff are burned out, they're not going to be able to produce that for you.
Of course. Do you find that your clients and other companies that you talk to that are implementing 4-day work week programs, do they adjust PTO and vacation to accommodate, or do you consider them to be two independent things?
We consider them to be two independent things. Because we do see organizations who might have had unlimited vacation time, which personally I feel, people generally don't use that. And
studies have shown that too, by the way.
What?
Studies have also shown that as well.
When you have something that's opt-in, and this is the wonderful thing about a work time reduction project, is that, and implementing work time reduction, is it's across the organization. It's not opt-in. This is what we're doing, and it's fair across the organization, and everybody does it. When you have that opt-in vacation time, as you've said, studies have shown people don't necessarily use it. So just back to your question, no, they're two separate things. So we see most organizations will keep the same PTO, because this is really about fundamentally changing the way that you work. So you're still producing the same thing. The idea is that you do become more productive, and that's what we've seen. It's an opportunity to sort of go back to basics and see how can we do this better.
Let's talk about your organization, the Work Time Reduction Center of Excellence. Approximately how many employees are at your organization, and do you guys have a 4-day work week?
So we do have a 4 day work week. We're flexible in terms of how that works for us. We are a startup essentially, so you know what that's like. It's very busy. We've got a lot of balls to juggle, and we're growing. So our team is spread globally. We have 50 odd consultants in the UK. We have 15 consultants in the US. We
Wow.
have a wonderful board that supports us. We're partnering with the University of Toronto. So we
And these are
have,
employees, by the way, when you refer to consultants?
yeah,
They are, okay.
yes,
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, we definitely try to do a 4 day week as much as possible.
Right,
Of course, there are some weeks that you can't do that, but
right.
we try to.
But it has to, but it just, I guess it depends on the circumstances. So, what about you, Grace? I mean, you're head of operations. You have a responsible job. You're, senior management at this organization. And how has the 4 day work week experience been for you?
I think from my perspective, I began working a 4 day week when I started working for the Centre of Excellence. So I really believe that a good time to do is in a startup. And many people say that that's a scary idea for them because they're desperately trying to get this going and really make it work, and you want to use every minute of the day. But actually, if that's the way that you've always done it, and you really try to prioritize, and you do all the things that we read about all the time, getting your to-do list, doing the most important thing, cutting out the distractions. If you commit to doing that, it is certainly possible. It
Right.
absolutely is possible. And of course, you're going to have, I mean, I could have a meeting, on a Friday when I'm supposed to be off with, a really big client, and of course you're going to take that because that's a priority that and that's the thing is, that's across the board for every
Hmm.
organization that's looking at this. If you have a project that your team need to work towards, there has to be flexibility in the same way as there's flexibility now in the 5 day week. If you have something, a deadline, or you have a really important client that wants to meet at a time that you generally don't work, you're going to take it.
Right.
So we have to be open and honest about, what the realities are of a busy organization.
It's funny. So, Mike, I have 10 employees in my company and about a dozen contractors, but let's exclude them from this conversation. And we don't have a four. I thought the whole concept of a 4 day work week, Grace, is that particularly for people that are in a service position, management position, white collar kind of position, as long as they're getting their stuff done, and this is the way that I am with my employees, I don't really care if they're working 1 day a week or 12 days a week. I mean, it's like it's up to you. So, when if I send an email to somebody, I'm not expecting a response in an hour, but I am expecting a response sometime timely if it's an important one, even if I'm sending it over the weekend. But most of us are pretty good with the fact that unless it's like some fire is going on, it can wait, until the actual work week begins. But I have to tell you, like, we don't clock in, we don't clock out. For all I know, I'm running a 4 day work week company because I'm not keeping track of people's time. Is that the way it is at your business? I mean, because you said people are spread out all over the place, and I'm assuming you work from home quite a lot. And so your 4 day work week model is one, again, at your company, is one where people are left up to their own devices as long as they're getting their stuff done. Is that a fair way to describe it?
It is for us, and I suppose in terms of if you look, if you're using the Centre of Excellence as a model,
Yeah,
we
just
are working we
go
are
ahead. I'm
working
sorry.
with consultants all over the world. So it's a slightly different structure whereby we're working towards a project more so than it is a little bit different than we were always a 9 to 5. We're all based in Toronto. So but what I would say about you're discussing your own team, and,
Yeah.
and as long as they get their work done, which is a wonderful culture to have, the one thing I would say is that not everybody is going to take the downtime. And so by bringing in a policy across an organization, it ensures that it's fair. It ensures that, there is productivity and you're getting the most out of your employees as well. And if we look at the huge benefits, and one area that I'm particularly interested in is gender equality, and the idea around the real transformational change that I believe work time reduction will have on working parents.
Sure.
And if you don't bring a policy in across the board, not everybody's going to do it,
Yep.
and it's 9 times out of 10 women who take that extra day off, so that's the only thing about not making it mandatory, is that I don't think that equates to fairness, is the only
Right.
thing,
But yeah, I have like in my company, and by the way, thanks for your nice comments. I run like the world's most dysfunctional company because we're completely virtual. And we've been this way, by the way, since 2005. So like we hardly ever see each other like face to face, and we lose some culture because of that and innovation. But that's a whole other conversation. But of the 10 employees, 7 of my employees are women and 3 are men. And particularly for the women, and they've all been with me for a long time. Many of them I've been through. They've had kids, and it's always been. I've just always had the attitude of being like, listen, you got to do what you got to do, for your family, for your kids, for whatever, and then you've got your clients that you're responsible for. So, however you are up to manage, I'm not going to sit there and micromanage your day. And if you're not available at 3 p.m. because you're doing something that's family related, that's fine, as long as ultimately you get me the answers that I need, or that you're serving your clients. So I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that's kind of the attitude that we've had, and it's like you said earlier, it's different for every company, isn't it?
This is the thing, and it is incumbent on employers like yourself to create an environment where women can thrive, and allowing and having an opt-in policy of a 4-day week, or opt-in flexibility in very large organizations where there isn't the same culture,
Right.
and where we're talking about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 employees, sometimes much larger than that. It needs to be so much more detailed. It really does. And I think when we start to move towards work time reduction, that is when, and when large companies start doing it, that pushes everybody else in that direction, So it's bringing policies in. I mean, flexibility, that you can't unring a bell. That's happened now. People are demanding that.
There's no doubt, and your point about large companies is so important because, listen, we're competing for talent with bigger companies. And if I'm competing with other tech companies and they're providing 4-day work weeks and it becomes a standard thing, I mean, if I want to get talent, I've got to respond to that. So this is absolute reality. Okay, so you and I both work for and in companies that it makes it easy for us to be that flexible, But I'm thinking of a client that I have right now, and they're in like New Jersey, that they have about 150 employees, and they've got 50 to 70 of them in the manufacturing plant. I mean, these are hourly workers, and they're running machines. It's tough for them to do something like a 4-day work week thing without doing the 10-hour a day thing. What would you say to a company that has hourly workers where their jobs are dependent on the output, like they have to be there between a certain period of time? How do you address companies with those issues?
Yeah, and that can be a real challenge. Again, I'd say like most of the projects that we run, your employees will tell you how to do this. So there's very few managers from the C-suite that are going to be able to know the ins and outs of everybody's workday and be able to tell you how you're going to find efficiencies, but they know because they're doing it every day. So if it means that you have to buy a new piece of equipment, for instance, if it means, they've researched, they've said, well, this doesn't really work and this takes me longer, and they need to invest in a new machine that does something differently, then if they go back to the drawing board and look at their finances and say, okay, so our turnover was whatever it was last year and our sick days were this, if they do the math, they'd probably be better off buying the better machine and making that a bit more efficient for their employees. So no matter whether you're dealing with a brewer who have done it and a brewery were really successful at the 4 day week, and I think they did in fact get a new machine. Um, or you're dealing with an IT company, your employees will tell you, because it is so transformative for them in their lives, that they want to make this work. And
Okay.
again, they know their work better than you do. You may think you do, but you're not doing what they're doing every day. So, yeah, finding out from them how to do it. But often with something like manufacturing, it can be investment in something that you've been putting off and saying, oh, I've seen that's come out and we could add to that, but it costs this. But again, looking at how many sick days your employees are taking, looking at how the turnover is, that's so costly. It can be better in the long run for you.
So I guess that would be your response to my next question. I mean, I have so many, we have about 600 clients in my firm, and many of them, they're like family owned businesses, privately held companies. And, and they're run by, honestly, they're run by, they skew male run, by men over the age of 50, because that is also the demographics of U.S. business owners. And I know for a fact that if I was giving the example of this one client in New Jersey, if I go to the guy running the company and say, hey, you should implement a 4 day work week, he's like probably 60 years old. He would look at me like I've got horns coming out of my head. And I know what he would say. He'd be like, so let me get this right. So you want them to work 4 days a week, but I'm still supposed to pay them for 5? So I guess the response to that, though, that because you must see people like this, all the time. It is a productivity, a sick time issue as well, a competitiveness issue. Well, how would you sell that guy to to say why he should be considering a 4 day work week?
I mean, I suppose I'll take this opportunity as well to say that I was super excited to come on this podcast, because small businesses and local businesses is something that I am deeply passionate about.
Good.
And I believe that small business, local business is the backbone of our communities. And, they are the businesses who are going to support your kids' football team. They're going to employ your child. They're going to know your father's name when he goes in to get his paper every day. They may be the only people he talks to. And I think
and we're also miserable and tired and work too hard. But I got it.
But as a society, we're shutting down all these small businesses, and I think in a couple of years we're going to want to open them all back up again and call it something like immersive shopping or something silly like that. But
yeah, it'll be in the metaverse.
Exactly. But so just to take the opportunity to say that, that is something that I believe deeply in and the importance of. But work time reduction in the 4 day week isn't for everyone today. And
Okay.
we don't advocate in the Centre of Excellence for, turn the switch like that and, you have to change the whole way you run your organization. There are people who are ready. There are organizations that are ready, and there are organizations that aren't. But what I would like for that client of yours is to start to think about it, start to have the conversation, and be ready and prepared to just open the door to exploring if this was something that we looked at, and look deeper than the 4 day week. Look at shorter working weeks, and very much go back and look at what you touched on. How much is it costing you when your 150 person staff, they're out sick? That's really costly. And also it's costly for your own mental health. The stress of that as a business owner is enormous. Finding talent, extremely difficult. We know that. How much is that costing you? I mean, if you look at the brass tacks of it, because that's what that client of yours is probably mostly concerned about, he would be surprised, I think, to see how. And then also, again, I think it's really important to harp on about this, is it's not a switch. You're not saying we're doing it tomorrow, and
Right.
you've got to go on the journey. You've got to have a look and see, can we do it? And again, your employees are the ones who are going to tell you that. Is this possible? Because if it isn't, then it doesn't work. And you can trial something and say, we're going to try this, but if we don't see these outcomes, then this isn't going to work. Now, I will say to you, 9 times out of 10, when it's done properly, it is really, I mean, it's
Something else.
employee and employers' needs are aligned so much that it's bound to work, and it does,
Yeah.
because they want to make this work.
I think it's so important what you're saying, mainly because for those of you guys who are listening and watching to this, I mean, every client that I go to, everybody in my community that's running, the people I interview for the articles, their biggest problem is finding people and finding good people. I mean, it's very tight labor, and that's not going to end anytime soon. Having a 4-day work week, it may not be for your company, but it should be something to be thought about and considered and evaluated and even tested. Because if it can be done, to me, it just seems like an amazing recruiting tool and a great way to retain your employees as well. And if you're just ignoring it, you're ignoring the opportunity to bring good talent to your company. So I think the message that you're bringing is really, really important. Grace, I have to ask you, so in your bio, it says you're an entrepreneur, an activist, and an artist. And I never asked what kind of an artist you are. What do you
I
do?
am a violinist and a
No
singer.
kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm actually a musician by profession, but I took a different road. On my background, I was actually a politician in Ireland. I was a local representative. So I was doing that for 9 years. And I guess that's kind of when I first became interested in work time reduction. And then I moved to New York and did a research project there. And now here I am in Toronto trying to change people's lives.
It's very cool. The political thing, no interest at all, but the violin thing is very, very cool. And do you still play or perform anywhere?
Yeah, I do. When I was in New York, I was lucky to play with the Brooklyn Symphony Orchestra, which was an incredible orchestra. And, I was so lucky that I had that wonderful thing as part of my life to jump into a community and play with them. And I haven't had an opportunity yet to join an orchestra here in Toronto, but it's on my list. We've been busy since we moved here with the Centre of Excellence, so I have to get back to my music. But I play a lot, and it's how I de-stress.
Very cool. Grace Tallon, former politician, current violinist, head of operations at Work Time Reduction Center of Excellence in Toronto. Guys, if you are considering, and you should be considering, partial work weeks, 4-day work weeks, these are things that I'm seeing more and more of my clients talk about and evaluate. It's all about finding and retaining good people. And this is where the trends are in workplace nowadays. You have to consider it if you want to grow your business. Grace, thanks so much. The work that you guys are doing is fantastic, and we will stay in touch.
Thank you, Jean. A pleasure.
Everyone, you've been watching and listening to the Hartford Small Biz Ahead podcast. My name is Gene Marks. If you need any tips or advice or help in running your business, please visit us at smallbizahead.com or sba.thehartford.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again next time. Take care.